So all these are unspoken requirements, which is not directly contributing to the business requirements, but it's the side informations which you need to take care. They'll not tell you like, no, if the security has to be at that level or this level. So these are informations like, no, auditing is required or not. Those information of like, no, how many times uh, people has come, when it came, what kind of problem it had faced. So logging of those informations, right? You log those data. So you log4j or some certain logging framework that you use to log those information. So these are a lot of other than requirements. You can see a lot of things which is not spoken in the requirement. Those are side requirement, and those are not really bothering the client that you are taking the requirement from. So they will talk purely about the what they need from the business side. Maybe there will be some need of historical data to keep it. There will be like some requirement to how frequently the DB fills with this information, or file system fills with this information. Should you hold that data for longer, or should you delete it, or what should you do actually? Should you compress it and put it in some drive? So these are like a non-functional requirement. It's not a functional requirement, non-functional requirement. And those things can be handled so easily as a cross-cutting concerns, like a cross-cutting concerns, as like cross-cutting concerns are all these things which doesn't contribute too much to the functional codes, and still we need to write a lot of code to that. So can we minimize that? And that is what it is handled by the AOP. So similar to this, there are several modules. If you want details of it, like how many modules of the strings, can just quickly go through it. And I'll not like spend stretch of the time on this. I'll leave you with some of the references where you can go and like increase your knowledge or um,
Okay.
questions, so that it will be easier for you also to spend some time to read it and then explore in a systematic way in a more. I'll just give you the starter for all these sides. Like that is what I can do for preparing for Monday interview, right? So these are like AOP, JDBC, which comes under ORM, JMS, transactions, a lot of things which goes here. And here you see like how the IOC is basically built on. So core and beans, you have context classes. So when you go inside the uh, dependency injections of a Spring, which is inversion of control, Spring IOC, that is basically serving through the context basically. Then AOP, data access layer. So you have a Spring data. Then we have, which is MVC. Under the MVC, you study that. And then you will find some of the old way of writing this, and then you compare it, right? You used to write all these bin definitions. Now you don't need it. Most of these things can be just auto-wired. You just say that this is my bin. You say annotation, and that becomes that. You hardly do it. If it's a complex configuration, then only you do all these things, right? See the definitions and all. You'll understand. And this is what you have as a POM. Do I see POM somewhere now? Okay, let's look at this Spring initializer. So you can always start your Spring Boot project here. So you come here and you can generate your project actually. This is the template
Yeah.
given. So
Yeah.
latest version of Spring Boot is 2.7.3, which is officially released. But you have a snapshot release, milestone release, and a snapshot release of 3.0, which is not GA. What GA is like a GA is like a global accessible or something like that, which means that it is published to the everybody. All of us can just go and take it as a official release. and then start using it. So these are like a test or beta releases. Okay. So when you start writing your project, basically these three things I talked about, right? The version, which version? So we'll see the versions other side. And then you see the group of projects. So you are writing the project, your project, you give a group name, which is nothing but under this umbrella, all of it. So any company name, website in a reverse. So if you say Google, it will be com.google. Okay. So name of the artifact. So each artifact will have the name. So you will give, because you want to refer that artifact with it. So you can say home security for your home security. Same thing you can repeat as the name of the project, and then you can have a bit of description, and then create a package. So when you say package, it is going to be kind of combination of whatever you have put it in a group versus
And right.
artifact, or maybe you can choose uh, the group should be there plus additional information that you want to keep it. That will become your base package, the start package, where everything you want to keep starting, and then you have a choice of which version of Java you want to choose. So basically, from the server side, you can take the 11, and then you want a specific type of project, right? We were talking about what kind of project we want. So you need all the MVC projects are here. You see the RESTful MVC, all those are supported here. And here you have Apache Tomcat as a embedded default container, but that's not restricted to Apache only. You have a choice. You can choose between three of the servers. So one is Apache, one is JT, and one more are there. Then you have a new, right now there are new frameworks which has come into market, like a reactive programming. This is mainly based on the event-driven programming, basically. So anything earlier, how it used to be happening, like long-running processes will take a lot of time. You don't know, you keep polling it, like you keep asking, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Instead of that, you said, boss, whenever you're done, this is my URL. You call me and say it is done. Okay, so that's the reactive programming. That is like a event driven. So it will generate an event and say I am done. GraphQL is helping you to manage your APIs when you write your APIs, right? So GraphQL is equivalent to the RESTful web services. You have a RESTful, you have GraphQL. So those both of those work on a similar line, but still there are a lot of differences. Then you have a repository service. This comes under your ORM, right? The data man, the Spring data basically. Here it helps you to manage all kind of your databases, all sort of SQL, NoSQL, everything. Then you have a session. So this provides you, like when you're using the Spring Web, you want, this is a stateless completely, means you come to me and ask me something, I'll serve you, but I'll not remember you, right? So but if you want your user to be identified by your system, then this is something you use, Spring Session. Then you have a hype this one HAL, REST repository HAL. This is all helping tool on the REST repositories. How you make your end user understanding that these are the RESTful web services I have. How do I manage it, right? Uh, that is all linked actually. If you see, this is all related to the RESTful. Head OS is basically writing the information back to the client about the URLs or the possible APIs, REST APIs that is served by this particular application. So which means you're trying to inject or give the information to the client so that it is aware and it knows how to use the next set of APIs. So that is managed by the head OS. Then Spring Web Services helps you to create a SOAP services. SOAP services used to be old way of creating the simple object oriented application protocol, which is SOA based architectures, like when you have XML payloads which will go large, and then you have a WSDL WSDL files which writes a contract actually. And this is something people hardly use it. This was used in a legacy projects or enterprises. Now your requirements would fit into more of like a RESTful web services. So you will give a HTTP endpoints, and you will choose JSON payloads rather than having the WSDL files, WSDL files, which is going to be huge and heavy to consume, and the XML payloads. You will not look for that actually, because these were the old integrations, old style of doing this.
Okay.
Jersey framework is like, no, it will help you to convert your uh, uh, Java Pojo to uh, JSON files, and JSON to Java files. It comes with some API specifications, JAX-RS. It says that, like, no, how to basically convert, how to validate, all those support it gives you here. And you have a Varin, you have a time leaf. There's a template engine. Under the template engine, you have a time leaf, Apache FreeMaker, Mustache, and Groovy template. This
Timeleaf is used as same Spring Web Services or something else.
is Spring MVC. Under the Spring MVC. Sorry, Spring
Spring
MVC.
Web.
Yes.
Both are same.
Which, no, both are not same. So you have a choice. You go with the Spring MVC. You can decide what kind of view you will write, right? So you have a view here. You're talking about, right, Spring MVC. So in the Spring MVC, you have a model view and controller. So
This view mostly depends on front end or what.
that's what. So how you write your front end, JSP,
Yeah.
HTML, or something else. So this template engine is going to replace these things, right? It is going to give you something which is still simplifying, so that you don't have to write too much. For the Java developers, if the Java developer has to write all the front end code also, then it is very hard actually, because nowadays is you have a specialized frameworks, right? It is Angular, it is React, and all such frameworks which requires a special skills to write the things in a more professional way, right?
Oh,
So those will be having the specific requirements, and those skill sets basically are limited to the React or related to the front end frameworks only. They will not be, those skills will not be so deep into anything else, but more focused on to the React. But when you are a Java specialized resource, you are also doing the Java as a, or Spring as a very religiously, right? So your focus is more onto the backend code, right? No, backend code is like writing the model, writing a controller, writing a business actually, right? So core business codes you are writing. So how you can same time write your view, if the
when
responsive
we send a web request, where does it hit? I mean, in view or model?
controller.
Okay.
So when
From
you,
the front end, it comes from view, then to the controller.
so view is the front end.
Okay.
Whatever loads in a browser is a front end,
Okay.
and that is a view. Okay.
What about model?
Model is your core code, is a business. So this guy is going to choose which business to execute. Suppose if you are saying login controller, right? So login controller will pick up the login services and hit that. So this is services that you have written, your classes.
Okay. Okay. I got it.
You know? And time leaf is going to just help you to build a better view. So you don't have to break your head, because you come from the Java background, or you are a backend programmer, right? So you have two types of programmer in here in a very short, but you can further classify. There is a hybrid model also, like you say full stack developer, which is a hybrid of like a front end and back end. So you have a front end technologies or front end developers, back end technologies and back end developers. So all this Java, Spring, all these things you see here, mainly addressing the problem of a back end developer. So what happens to the front end? So the Spring assumes many of a time it is not very extensive or rich UI you want to create. The user interface, most of the time for the good business, right? When you're writing a very large size project, mainly those website, if you see, if you interact with any of the hi-fi business websites, it won't be that rich into the UI. UI will not be that good. Have you seen all like a Google website, Google email, and all those things, right? They believe in a functionality. They do their business logic so powerful. They will not leave the room for the business room for the error in a business logic. They'll spend a lot of time into the business side. They will not spend a lot of money and effort on building a very rich experience at the website. They will keep it minimal. Right now, it should be decent enough. It should not look ugly. But
Yeah.
to make that happen, Springs gives you the opportunity, though you are not very intensive, not having intensive knowledge of UI. When you write UI, right, you are writing a view, and when you're writing a view, what kind of technology you are using? You're writing the HTMLs basically, right? So HTML and CSS or JavaScripts, right? These are the things you're writing, isn't it? So when you are writing this kind of technology, basically being a Java developer, you might not be very expert in this. So what these guys are giving you as a template engine. So I'm giving you the Vue template engines, which gives you the different types of templates. So you just give your bean to that template, and you give little bit of basic setup, and it will try to fit that the rendering of that model into that view. It will try to generate the good look and feel by putting your things, your Java object into that, so that it becomes easy. You don't have to do a lot of HTML, CSS, and all those things, because you don't know it. So you don't have to even go and spend time on it. Can I move on?
Yes, Neeraj.
So then you have security. In the security, you have like a Spring Security Basics one, and then you have extension. I told you, right? The Spring Security comes with the authentication authorizations, and there could be several ways of doing it. So one way is like no auth 2, or to uses generally open IDs. Like when you might have seen somewhere, when you authenticate on a one platform, it may forward your request to your Gmail, or it can allow you to authenticate yourself using your existing IDs, right? Like Gmail ID or Facebook ID or any such things. Similarly, for the Okta, right? You might have seen Okta validations. So
Mm.
you get authenticated, and it is transferring you to Okta website, and there you get authenticated and come back, right? So those comes under the auth 2 validations, is all connected. And then you have a LDAP validations, like your active AD, right? Active directories. Every company maintains their LDAP servers, where they create the informations of their employee and what kind of access they can have, right? When you use your company provided laptops, they control your access, right? So that is maintained on the LDAP. And in the Java, if you want to use that LDAP to validate those users, the existing users, then you use the Spring LDAP. And I already talk about the Okta, which follows the OAuth 2 specifications, which is here. So, but OAuth 2 is like a client and server both. So if you want to facilitate Okta as a server or Okta as a client. Then I talked about like, this is all like a data services. So you have a Spring Data. In this Spring Data, you have so many things. JDBC API, which is like a plain simple connectivity to the database. Then you have a JPA where you don't need to know a lot. It just gives you the wrapper. Through that, you can write your query. So you see when you write, so when you interact with the database, you write a SQLs, right? So SQLs are like a SQL, structured query language. So how you're writing a Java program, similarly to interact with the databases, you write in their own language, right? So you write in a SQL structured query language, where
Yes.
you say, I want the data from this table. So you say, select this and this and this field from this table and give.
Yes.
So that is the way of interacting with the databases. So all the Java developer will not be that expert to interact with the SQLs directly. So Springs provides you a Spring Data JPA. JPA will simplify like a Java persistent API. So this is basically going to talk to the database on your behalf, and you talk to JPA using the Java objects. So you say you express your requirements in terms of Java objects because that is easy for you. And this guy will translate that Java object to the query and hit to the database, the structured query language. So it will hit to the database because the databases can change and the query can change as per the database changes, right? So those things it will manage. A lot of these complexities are managed by JPA. And all these different flavors helps you to manage your database, different types of database, right? There are so many types of database.
Yes.
I was talking about all this, right?
Yes.
Then coming to the caching services. This is all comes under the NoSQL. So you talked about the SQL, which is structured query language. This is no structured query language, which means it's not cannot be bounded in terms of tables. Tables has the row and column structure,
Mhm.
but here you don't
Okay.
have a proper tabular structure. It can be JSON, right? The JSON. Have you seen the JSON samples? You've
Yes.
done the project. You might have seen the JSON. So it
Yes.
is more of like a key value pairs, right? Which can
Value
be list and
pairs.
ladder.
Yes.
So that kind of a structure which is confined within the curly braces, which basically are
Yes.
which can be also one of the type of the storage, like no, for the storage it can be used. So you
Okay.
write your data in terms of JSON like structure rather than putting as a as a table,
Table.
row and column. So this kind of databases which are NoSQL, which is more compliant to such kind of a structure. So you have a document based, you have a object based. You can directly save the objects. You can directly save your whatever you have. So you have a Elasticsearch, MongoDB, Redis cache, Cassandra, all this you will hear. There are so many things, Couchbase and all. Lot of databases are there. Neo4j, Graph4j, lot of things are there actually. It solves a different purposes. One will be solving a purpose for too much of read operations you are doing, and you have a lot of select queries, selecting the information, fetching the information. So for that purpose, this will be more of like the use case basis, whether you want to do more of the read or write or what, just let me know. We design the database in that way so that it will be easier. This is more for the heavy searches, like no, you want to search fastest search that you want to do it in a world. So Elasticsearch will help you doing that. Then again, Couchbase and all are like no copies of like no, you'll see it's more of like a copy of MongoDB or Cassandra. Must be inspired by either of these or the Redis cache. So, but the fresh one you will see is a Neo4j. So you see the graphical structures like no, um, how our neurons work in our brain, right? You remember something, you save your informations in your subconscious mind as part of like no connecting the leaf, right? So you have a graph data structure which connects the node by node. So one node keeps one information, and then you connect the path to next. So it is more of like a hierarchical, right? So how
Yeah.
we have seen the inheritance trees, like top you have a parent, and then you have two child, and then so it connects like it creates a link between all this. So that kind of data structure, that kind of data can be easily stored and retrieved and manipulated in the Neo4j. Then you have a spring integrations, like messaging queues we were talking about. You see, RabbitMQ, Kafka Streams, ActiveMQ. ActiveMQ has Artemis. Then you have WebSocket. WebSocket is more of like event driven. Then you have RSocket, then you have Apache Camel, uh, then you have Spring Batch. Now this all comes to IO operations. You are doing the lot of file processings, right? When you many of these banking still do the reconciliations, right? So it will send the to the federal, right? So all suppose there are 5 6 banks, they have done the transactions over the period of during the day, sorry, and by the closing hour they'll send those files for the reconciliations at the federal bank, or
Yeah.
in India we say RBI, right? So they reconciliate all these transaction has been done. Maybe many would be failing, so they will try to correct it and revert those things, the balance back to the origin account, right? So those things goes as a batch processing, such and such things. Many of the time you will require a database backups, right? That can do as a batch processing. You want to move the data from one place to another place in off business hour, that can go as a batch process. You want to download a lot of data from other websites and keep it in your database, that can go as a batch process. You want to play the analytics on a huge data that is in a file, you want to process that file, and so those goes as a batch processes. Then validations, how you want to ensure that your data is coming as correct. Then mail sender, like the email and all these things, right? SMTP basically. So you send an email using the Java, you use the SMTP protocol, simple mail transfer protocol, and then use it. So you have a Java email library. Then you have quad job schedulers. You want to schedule some of the things, right, which should trigger on time, right? Monthly you want to run some script which will process the payments of the employers, right? So those are like a job. Then the cache abstraction, it all basically is a very high level layer for the caching, and that can be used while you're processing your files. You can store it uh, and process it, so which allows you to give some space and do it. Then these are not so important to know as of now. Actuator is, again, you know, the microservices, right? So Spring Boot is used as a to write the microservices. Microservices is like, earlier we used to write a single project for entire, suppose, application that we are having. Suppose if we are having a uh, e-commerce application which gives a whole platform where you list a vendor, you list a product, you have a cart, you have a descriptions, you have comments, review, all these things, right? A lot of things which binds together in a one portal of e-commerce. And that was basically written with like a one single war file, right? WAR file, web archival, which will embed all of these modules, different modules, where the login, the product listing, order, payment, all these are part of one single deployable artifact. So that we call it as a monolith systems, a large system which deploys together, fails together, serves together, right? So if it
Yeah.
fails, it fails in a whole. It
Yes.
like, you have a minor problem in a, say, payment module, and your your product listing is also getting impacted. Maybe user is coming just to see that product, right? But your service unavailability is caused, your service is unavailable and user cannot see it at all. So such and such things is the problem, and now Spring Boot also helps you to keep your services so lightweight that it can serve the dedicated part of the system. So suppose if you have a login requirement, so you want to authenticate a user and let him log into the system, you create a one login microservices, then you have a users microservices, then product microservices, then order microservices, the payment microservices, then notification microservices, then cancellation microservices, then comment reviews microservices. So many things, right? So many microservices can be broken into depending on how you identify the business workflow, like a domain of the business, right? Based on that. So here you see couple of services which are more impactful, which is going to create a lot of good improvisation from the previous generation of Spring program writing to the recent ones. And Spring Boot Actuator is one of them. It allows you to look at your data metrics, the health of system, right? You can look at like my Java JVM is filling up, my sessions are exhausting, my applications database connectivity has broken, so health of the application is getting degraded. So you can transparently have an insight about your application using the Spring Boot actuator, and this is very much needed for the kind of um, microservices, kind of like a approach that we take, right? So microservices are the approach for today's solutions most of the time, right? Similarly, you have a lot of other things which comes as a monitoring. These are all for insights. On insights, Datadog, Influx, Graphite, New Relic, Prometheus, Sleuth, Webfront, Jipkin. All this allows you to monitor your memories, monitor your applications, monitor your transactions. All these things you can monitor, right? Then you have a testing frameworks. You have how do you basically run your test cases, right? So how you basically test it easily and find out everything is quality. Then you have cloud supports. This is all for microservices. Also today's world, you have connectivity to the. I was talking about the AWS S3, right? So how do you connect to the AWS or GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, or
Okay.
Azure, which is Microsoft Azure Cloud? So these are the libraries which is going to give you the cloud connectivity. So a lot of cloud things you will see here.
Okay.
Okay, all cloud you will see here, and you will see. So you want to study Spring Boot modules, what all it supports. So you can see, basically you can see in this Spring Boot itself. So here you can just start your topic, and you will see a lot of these things which are covered, and also they provide you examples of those, right? So you see Docker support, you can see Spring Data, you will see microservices related also, how you can create a vault configurations, right? How you can integrate with the Kubernetes. Then when you come to the cloud, it is more of like how you deal with your um, uh, microservices, right? So I'm just going to put it here.
Okay.
I'll just go through it. This will give you some kind of better insight, and you will be able to understand them in a better way, actually. I'll figure out more of the resources. This is not so good.
Okay.
I'll just ping you a couple of more links, and this is very important, actually. Start dot. So this is where you start your project from, and there is one more Spring modules in detail. So you always, I think you should go to Spring site. These are authentic actually. So if you go here, they will tell you in better way actually. So if you see, you have JDBC, FORM, OXM, JMS, web servlet portal, which you call it as a MVC together. This you call it as a data or integration together. You call it as a AOP here, and then you have a Spring container, which we were talking about. This is nothing but your dependency injection module, which call it as a IOC. Okay, and then you go through all of this, and you will be able to make bit of your understanding proper actually on this, and then it will take you to the scenarios and more of the informations. But when you're done with those things, do come back to this Spring IO. Oh man, this Zoom is sometime get stuck here. Okay, not leaving me. So you come to a Spring initializer, dock to top. Yeah. So if you come to this site, right? Okay, and if I say com dot my PRJ project, and I say new project, okay, and if I add the dependency, are you still with me? Are you
Yes, Neeraj.
So you can try with the Spring MVC or Spring REST controller. There's the basic thing that you need, and dev tool is needed to know if you want to aggressively restart your programs. The recompilation has to done on each save, right? So it reacts faster, so it makes your life easier if you take the Spring boot dev tools. Lombok is going to generate your setters getters, right? You saw that a lot of setter getters, sometime it becomes like a 50 of your attributes, and you don't want to write a setter getters by hand, so you just use the Lombok.
Yeah.
So for now, we'll just take the Spring Web, which will also cater two things, like RESTful. Either I can choose RESTful or I can choose the MVC. It's all my choice. So it is just going to give me that way. And I take a Java 11, and that's all. I don't change anything else here. And then I say generate. The moment I say generate, I get a new project. I go there and open the project. So when I open the project, I see there is a POM file. And rest of these things are not important. So you can ignore the first three, and you see the POM file, and then you see the SRC. But SRC this time, since it's managed by Maven, you will see you will have two top folders, like a main and test. Test is like your unit test cases. You can write your test cases here. In a main, you will see the Java and resources. I was talking about these resources where you keep your application properties or YAML files. You can either keep your YAML file, you can remove this and put that application.yml. Both works. There is no difference. So that is there in the resources. Rest of the things are just useless. This is not useful for you now. But when it comes to template engine, right? Here exactly you are going to write your template files. You remember TimeLeaf template engine?
Yes.
Yes. And now coming to our package. So your package starts from here. So this is your top two directories, but the base package starts from here. And then you, whatever the package name you have given, like you say com.myprj dot new project. So this is a com.myprj dot this. And then you get a new project application. This is basically this guy.